This episode is sponsored by Tin Can Timepieces. Looking for a watch that's built for anything life throws at you? Let me introduce you to Tin Can Timepieces. This is more than just a watch, it's a commitment to quality and purpose. Tin Can Timepieces is proudly based out of Georgia and is owned and operated by an active duty U.S. Navy submariner. That's right, a company built on discipline and precision. Every watch they create is handcrafted and features reliable automatic movements, ensuring you get a premium, quality feel with every tick. Whether you need a rugged diver or a classic dress watch, Tin Can offers an assortment of styles for every mission. Tin Can Timepieces, hand built for purpose, built for the depths. Dive deeper and check out their collection today at tincantime.com. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Pod Staff. With me tonight, I have Mr. Joe Trenning. Joe
Okay.
and I met a few years ago in a recovery setting, and he now does turf management for SMU, and he's in business school as well. So, Joe, I'll let you just share a little bit about your background, a little bit about your story, and kind of what got you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, thank you, Michael, for having me on. Excited to be here. So yes, I do turf management today. My official title is a sports turf supervisor, which I do nearby at SMU. And this is not a career path that I went to school for. I actually went to school for business at NC State University. And my life and the things that we'll get into later as far as alcoholism and recovery have all led to this career switch where I do find myself in turf management today. But what that looks like for me, really, and for those who aren't familiar with what that means, is I basically help manage all of the outdoor athletic facilities at SMU, D1 University. So that goes as far as like our football game field, our practice field, our soccer fields, the practice soccer fields, and just ensuring that those facilities are up to the high standards of our athletics teams, coaches, and just maintaining relationships with all of the athletic staff as well to make sure that we're all on the same page and coordinating practices and ultimately working behind the scenes so that the athletes have the best possible facilities to play their sports on.
Yeah. No, and I see your Instagram stories and stuff like that, and it looks like you get to meet like all these famous people and stuff because you're on the field at the games, right? Since you're maintaining the field.
Right. So that's one of the cool aspects and one of one of the great parts about having this position is that yes, I do get to be sidelined for all of the football games. Now that's a lot more fun, I'll tell you, when we are good, like we have been for the last 3 years. And with that success, we've had a lot more interest from people that we consider celebrities who want to come see these games and be sidelined. So I've had some great opportunities. I got to meet Bryson DeChambeau last year and take a picture with him and the U.S. Open trophy, which was really cool. Rasheed Rice, who is an alumni as well. Bryson also went to SMU back in the day, and then met other guys just like Micah Parsons, Trayvon Diggs, C.D. Lamb, are all people who have actually stopped by to train at our facilities. Last year, we also had Shador Sanders and Cam Ward come work out in our facilities. So um, you really never know who might pop by or pop through, and you might get a text one day that's like, "Hey, C.D. Lamb is wondering if he can practice at the indoor facility." And we're like, "Oh, that's cool. Let me find a reason to maybe go over there and
Yeah.
see if I can get a picture." Now, obviously, we want to stay professional and only do it if the opportunity presents itself. But I have had that pretty cool opportunity to meet some of these people.
Yeah. Curious on like what that conversation is like because like you say, you want to stay professional, but you don't want to miss an opportunity to meet a cool celebrity or something like that. So how do you kind of weasel your way in there to have that opportunity present itself for you?
Well, a lot of the time, it's actually the opportunity presents itself because oftentimes those facilities are locked up, and I'm the person who's going to go let them in and unlock it. So it's a pretty smooth transition into like, hey, heard you are here to hopefully use a facility. I can help you out with that. Follow me, let them in, and then, just real quick, but before you get going, is it possible to take a picture with you? I'm a big fan, and everybody's been super gracious. And then on the sidelines of games, for example, Bryson is there with the trophy to take pictures with people, right? He's not just trying to carry it around by himself that whole time. So everybody has been really open and gracious, and they're coming to use something of ours, which we will happily let them do, as long as it's not affecting the play or practice of one of our teams.
Yeah.
That is always the priority.
Yeah, and speaking of Bryson, I feel like he's just known as like the man of the people. So I feel like he would be one of the most welcoming dudes to just shake his hand or take a picture or something like that. And I think he lives right over here in Grapevine too.
I think he does. Yeah, he's got a home course over here. I saw those videos of him chipping over his house trying to make that hole in one. But
Yeah.
as he's kind of transitioned into the content game and become a big YouTuber as well on top of his professional golf career, he's great with the fans, and it was really cool to meet him. And it's actually been a couple of times. He comes to a good number of games, so we're
Yeah.
not quite on a first name basis, but maybe one day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Cool, man. Well, I want to kind of dive into the what the job actually entails because I used to have a landscaping business myself, which kind of piqued my interest whenever you said like you were maintaining the fields, and I know you used to, I think, work at a golf course or something like that. So, what's like your process, and how much really goes into turf management?
So great question, because this is something, at least for me, when I was an athlete back in the good old days of high school. You go out to a field and just think, or go to an NFL game and the field looks pristine, and it's something that not a lot of people even think about or consider. Oh, how does this happen? Who paints it? The football field just doesn't magically appear onto the grass.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, I guess I'll take you through what it looks like in the regular football season, which is a very busy season, and it also coincides with our soccer seasons too, men and women. So we've got those three sports going on at the same time. And so we really get to the point. So a game week, so game is on Saturday. Monday, we get a good mow on the field. And usually, depending on the weather, we will start painting for a Saturday game on Wednesday. So we are fortunate enough to have a lot of great resources. We have these really cool robot painters that are literally what they sound like. They are robots that you can program to paint. So we do not paint the entire field with them, but they paint the tick lines and the yard lines. So that still takes about 3 hours or so, and somebody has to be out there with the robot to ensure that it doesn't get a mind of its own, which at times it does. It's known to go rogue every now and then.
Will it go paint different stuff?
Yeah, yeah. There are times where it will start, and we're talking like inches. Even if it's painting 3 inches off of where it should, that line is not going to be in regulation. So it's really important that we've got somebody out there monitoring and making sure that the grid is coming out correct. So Wednesday, that grid will get painted, and then we take out the number stencils, and lay those down, measure them, paint the stencils, so we get the numbers down, and that's step one. You get the grid down and the numbers down, and then we move on to the logos. So step two, we do the logos, and typically we'll have conversations with the athletic staff and head coach, and just see where he wants to go with the middle of the field logo. So this past year, we really mainly did the big Mustang pony in the middle. So we have a huge stencil for that that has to be taken out, measured. We use aerosol to actually stencil it out, and then we do the same for the end zones, which just have the big SMU block letters in them. And after that, we take the stencils off and go crank up our different painters and use obviously different colors, and come back out and start painting the logos. So we will do that for most of the day Thursday. And then Friday, we will come back and touch up any logos that need it, and also touch up the numbers and yard lines. And then if possible, we will also try to get one final mow on it, because at that point we haven't mowed in a couple of days, and we don't want the grass to be too hairy. We call it for the actual game itself.
So that's you mow like after you put the paint on it and it's fine?
Yeah, so it's up to Mother Nature whether or not that works out. Because if there's a lot of humidity and the dew point is high, and the grass in the morning has any dew on it, then mowing is not going to be an option, because we will track paint with the mower. But if the sun is shining and the dew point is low, meaning that, our paint will dry, and the grass is not wet in the morning, then we're able to get a mow on it. So it's really dependent. And then game day, we get there 4 hours before the game, and we go around. We have all the equipment, like the pylons and the game clocks and the time clocks and the flags that we hang up on our three flag poles. So just basically getting the entire stadium and field set up before the game, and then we're just sidelined for the game and get to watch it, unless something goes wrong, which thankfully this season nothing went wrong. But we will go out and fill divots at halftime, any big ones. But that's really what a game day looks like. Now, outside of that, there's major processes that take place as far as maintaining the fields, and I mean, I don't want to go too into the weeds here, but there's
No pun intended.
aerating. Yeah, right. There's aerating, what we call verticutting, which is just it's a machine that pulls the thatch up out of the turf and basically lets it breathe a little bit more. And then we routinely, once or twice a week, use a different application of fertilizer to pump the grass with what it needs to stay green and growing. And it's literally a full-time job to keep all these
Yeah.
fields looking nice for the athletes.
Yeah, no, it sounds like I think we all like take for granted, especially when we're watching our team, on a game day, like we take for granted what it takes to maintain and go in looking that good. But I feel like there's probably just a lot to it that you could go super deep into, like turf versus grass, and then the end zone paint, and then the conference paint on the field, and then like any other advertisements or anything like that. So I think that's just one of those super overlooked things that is so cool to hear someone like on the front lines of that like does that full time.
Yeah, there are many details behind that process, and I feel like that goes for most professions. Just plenty of things that people don't see or think about until you're the one that's actually doing it and creating that product. But I'll tell you what, it's a great feeling to go out there and see the field on a game day just looking great, and having people, whether or not it gets complimented, I know that we're doing a good job, and I know that the athletes are enjoying having a natural grass field because up until this year, it was synthetic turf, and it seems like it comes and goes. There are fads, but with all of the injuries that have been taking place on synthetic turf fields, especially in the NFL, natural grass is now again a product that many coaches and athletes want and prefer. So
Yeah.
it's great to be able to put that product out there for them and see everybody enjoy it.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I feel like that's super rewarding. That's like one of those gratifications that it's not maybe immediate, but after a week, it's you could consider that immediate gratification on the work that you did. So that's awesome. I did want to kind of pivot into just briefly how working for turf management at SMU has transitioned you into now being in business school at SMU.
Right. So this this is all a part of what I see as one of the blessings of recovery, which we'll get into later, but it has just led me down this road. So like I said before, my undergraduate degree is in business, and I went into business, supply chain management specifically post grad for almost 3 years. And then when I got sober, I started working a get well job is what they call it. So a job where it's fairly stress free and not going back into the profession I was in before. And so that was at a golf course for me, and I didn't know where that was going to lead. And there was anxiety about, oh, how am I going to get back into supply chain, back into my career after taking this break and now working at a golf course. And so this was just part of me kind of taking my hands off and seeing that with me running things, my life was not going exactly to plan or how I wanted it. And so this was like, all right, let me just, as a cliche goes, let go and let God. So as I was working at this golf course, I after about 6, 7, 8 months, I started looking for a new position, and this job at SMU came up, and it sounded great to work at a D1 school and be outside and continue to follow the passion for turf management. And I got the job, and one of the perks of working at SMU is you do get discounts, scholarships for schooling within the program. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be admitted just because you work there. But I figured as long as I'm working here, it would be dumb to not try to further my education and take advantage of those perks. So I applied to the Cox School of Business back in last March and was thankfully accepted. And so I started the journey of my MBA in May of last year. And so I'm going into my third semester now, and things are going well. It's a great program. I'm learning a lot, including time management, because working a full time job while pursuing an MBA definitely has certain challenges.
With recovery stuff too. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, thanks for that reminder, because that is one thing that can definitely slip because life can get so full, and this life that I've gotten through recovery can then start getting in the way of the actual recovery that got me here. So it's really
Yeah.
important to balance all of those things as well as relationships. I have a fiance now, and so relationships, work, school, recovery, just trying to manage and juggle all of those things is difficult, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And my life is full, and I'm grateful for that, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where I want to pivot to next is just the recovery journey. So, for a lot of our listeners out there, I think that it's easy to have this stereotype in mind of the addict, right? And what I've learned and what you have certainly learned is that the addict can look a lot of different ways. I mean, the addict doesn't have to be the bum on the street that's asking for your quarters. The addict doesn't have to be the person who wrecks the cars and gets all the DWIs and burns down every bridge and loses their family. And I think that's probably what people call rock bottom at times, but I don't think that that's the standard for being an addict. So, whenever we talked before leading up to this, you had clearly mentioned that you were still, a pretty high performing guy before you got sober, and you were working a corporate job, climbing the ladder, and it was during that you said you didn't lose your job or anything, but you checked yourself into somewhere to get well. So just tell us about the beginning of that journey and what led you to really want to get sober and stick with it.
Right. So my drinking started, I think, as many do in high school, and just as a way to have fun with friends and fit in. And I was 14 when I took my first drink, and that was not the moment where it was like, boom, I'm off from there. But I definitely did know that I enjoyed the way that it made me feel. And as high school progressed, and then I got into college and had no supervision, the drinking definitely took off. And so I had this idea that as long as I was maintaining everything and how people saw me from the outside, and I'm talking at that point in college that I'm maintaining a good GPA, I'm working a job while I'm a full-time student, I have a social life, girlfriend, whatever it is, like that I'm doing okay, because like you said, as somebody who's struggling or an alcoholic, is not doing well in college and does not have a job and is not all of these things. So this is a point where I don't think I'm alcoholic, nor do I believe that it's going to be a real problem, because I'm also in college, and I can tell myself this is just what people do in college, right? And once I
Yeah.
graduate, yeah, once I graduate, like, I'm going to lock in and it's all going to be fine. So I did graduate, and I got decent grades, and I did a really cool internship between my junior and senior year in Germany at this textile manufacturing company. And that same company was headquartered in North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte, where I grew up. And so after graduation, I got a full time job offer at the global headquarters there and started working there. And everything was fine, I continued to perform at my job, and then I would get home and I would drink, and I would drink a lot. And as time progressed, there was less going out with friends. It became more isolated drinking, and I drink myself to sleep and then wake up and shower and drive to work and work all day and then get home and drink. And that started becoming the cycle. And then it got to about enough point where I started becoming physically addicted to alcohol. And the way that I would get up in the morning is I'd wake up and there would be a bottle by my bedside, and I'd take a couple swigs in the morning just to get out of bed, and make it to work. And then, still work. And as far as I knew, I was still taking care of my responsibilities, but at the same time, I knew once it started in the morning that this was a bad path and that this was not normal. However, I still wanted to convince myself that everything was okay. I mean, again, have the apartment, have the job, have the girlfriend, and the drinking. It's not great, but it's not ruining my life yet.
I want to ask real quick about the anxiety piece of that. So, I think a lot of people don't really understand probably the concept of like what would drive someone to drink in the morning. I've heard that a lot. I don't know if I've ever woken up and craved a drink, but I wonder if the reason for that, especially whenever things progress in a negative way, is it a lot about anxiety and like having the shakes and not being able to function without having that in your system physically?
Yeah, so part of it was definitely physically. I'd been drinking daily for years at that point, and the volume that I was consuming continued to increase. And at a certain point, I just did not feel right if I were to go a whole 24 hours without a drink. And so it was part physical, but also alcoholism is a disease of the mind as well, and there was something definitely mental about it too, where I did not think that I was going to, like, I just didn't feel right sober, you know? The normal, it got to a place where the normal for me was a couple of drinks, and then I felt normal.
Mm.
Without that, not only would I be kind of shaky and physically not feeling my best, but mentally too, I would be a mess because all of those thoughts would start to come in like, what are you doing with your life? How have you become this person that needs to take a drink in the morning? But once I got some of that into my system, I just felt myself like relax and just calm down and be able to function. And I think that's a difference as well between the normal drinker and the alcoholic is like the normal drinker may start to drink too much and start to feel out of control. When I started drinking, I began to feel in control.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting because I think a lot of people would say that their view of the alcoholic is the person that is out of control. Or I've heard people too say, their idea of the alcoholic is the person who you could never tell that they're drunk, but they are. So I think that even that alone just shows you that it doesn't have to look a certain way. And I don't know. I feel like there's probably a lot of people out there that may be getting to that point and may hear something like this and say, maybe I should change something. Maybe it's not removing alcohol completely. Maybe it is, but change something to where your life feels like your life whenever you're sober. Because I know how it feels at times to be crawling in your own skin. I had my bout with mental health, but I definitely think that the root of it, maybe not the root, but the result of mental health issues or substance abuse or anything, is feeling uncomfortable in your own skin whenever you're not using something to alter your mind.
Right. And that's totally it. And you know, this is also to help break the stereotype of the addict or alcoholic looks a certain way. Like you mentioned earlier, I was doing well. I showed up to work every day on time. I think I was managing my position well. I was managing a lot of people at that time, and I was good to them. I know that they appreciated me as a boss, but I also know that I was not working to my full potential because obviously how can you be when I'm drinking the way that I am. However, it did get to a point where it became unsustainable, and it wasn't only in the morning, it was then during my lunch break, and then just to get to the end of the day, and drinking until I passed out, and it was bad. And so I finally got to the point where I got out of this mindset that I'd been in, which was I can't ask for help right now because I am, a year or two into this new position. I'm starting my career, and how is it going to look to other people? And this is a theme that has come up throughout my battle with sobriety, was fear of other people and their opinions, and like especially my boss. I was dreading having that conversation where I sat down and said, hey man, I need a week to go to detox because I have a drinking problem. And so obviously I didn't have to disclose all of those details, but it just came out. Like I sat down with him, and I had the conversation. And this is another thing that it showed me, is that you never know who is struggling or who has somebody in their life that is struggling. Because my boss, when I said that to him, he said, "Hey, just so you know, my son is a heroin addict, and he's out there right now, and I wish he would get help. So you go take the time that you need and get this taken care of, and we support you." And that was a huge weight off my shoulders, and also, I mean, it just opened up a whole new side to him, where it was like he looked like he had everything together and life was great, but here he is with the son who's battling addiction himself.
I mean, it's totally more common than people think. Like, whenever it's funny how whenever you finally are honest, when you don't have to be, it's funny how it kind of spreads, and then people start opening up to you, and then you feel a lot more welcomed, and then maybe it spreads to someone else, and then maybe after that you feel more comfortable being honest and sharing with more people, and then maybe you get to be on a podcast and share it publicly. So,
Right, right. Yes, that's true, and this is a jump for me. I've shared my story plenty of times, but that's in more of a closed and anonymous environment. So, the hope is that this will maybe help even one person, and that's great, because I think that just the visibility of this, and hearing people talk about it will help people feel less alone.
yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Like, even if it touches one person, that's the hope with this podcast is, sometimes I'll see I don't have a lot of views on a video, but I have some, and I'm hoping that God brought the video or the clip on social media or whatever it may be to the right person who needed to hear that little nugget. Because not every episode or topic is for everyone, but the goal is, and really the hope, is that the people who need to be reached, whether it's deeply reached or whether it's just a little kind of entry level surface reach where it's like, oh, maybe this planted a seed, something like that. It could be a wide range of all of it, but that's the goal, and I appreciate you saying that. So I want to ask you about the difference between stopping and recovery, because a lot of people probably like the term dry drunk. Like, that's the term that's thrown around, where that is when someone just takes away the alcohol or the substance, but they're still miserable and they haven't fixed what drove them to pick it up in the first place. So talk to us about that difference.
So first of all, I'll preface it by saying that nobody, I mean, not even a doctor can diagnose me as alcoholic or not. They can obviously tell me about my patterns, and that they certainly look like I'm drinking way too much. But I'm the only person who can say and like concede to my innermost self that I am alcoholic and I do have this problem. Now, some people are able to have a consequence take place, a DWI, a DUI, some sort of injury, and just stop and be totally okay, and like not need any sort of program or treatment center or detox, and whatever that is, might call it scared straight, or whatever it is, like they can just stop. But there's a whole other side to that, of people who continue to face consequences, and life continues to get worse and more things keep happening, and they are still unable to stop. And that is typical of the alcoholic and the addict. And right, there is a total difference between being in recovery and then just stopping. And if I am an alcoholic and I just stop, but I'm not doing anything to better my life spiritually, or finding the reason, like you said, that I was driven to this place in the first place, and I'm not fulfilling myself and my spirit with something that is taking the place of the drug or the drink, then right, I'm going to be miserable. And if I'm miserable, I might as well just drink. So and I've been there before. My story is not one of I went to detox once and then got sober. My story is filled with relapse and continuing to try and failing and trying again and failing and continuing to try until finally I was willing to surrender and like admit to myself that I don't know what to do and I don't have the best ideas. And entering a program and like, giving myself to this program and actually being willing to try it and be honest with myself and be honest with another person. And so that's the difference. Like recovery is changing for me, has been changing my entire lifestyle and the principles by which I live life, whereas stopping is just taking away the drug or the drink and not changing anything else. And you know, you you can be sober and still be a bad human being.
Yeah.
Like just taking it away doesn't mean that everything is fixed. There is a lot more work involved, and the first step of that is removing the drug or the drink. In
Would
my
you
case.
say that it's certainly necessary to hit rock bottom? Because I feel like that term is thrown around a lot in mental health settings, recovery settings, where it's rock bottom. But what I found in my life is rock bottom can seem like rock bottom when something bad happens, and then something worse can happen a year later, and that's the rock bottom. And it's just like, is, is there ever a bottom? Like even for the maybe for the non-addict or alcoholic listener, like there's plenty of things that people struggle with without being into drugs or alcohol, but I feel like the change happens whenever you hit rock bottom. I just think it's interesting to define what rock bottom is.
Right, and it is a term that gets thrown around a lot, and rock bottom, quote unquote, can be different for plenty of people. I also hear that whenever you think you hit rock bottom, like you can still keep digging, and things can continue to get worse. So that's another point that I think it's important to make, is that getting sober does not have to take place after I've lost everything, and everything is gone. Like I can see the direction that I was going in, and I knew it wouldn't be long until that happened, or something unfortunate took place, or God forbid, I ruined somebody else's life through a drunken mistake, which I think happens far too often when people get behind the wheel. And so I saw that all of these things were possible, and I saw them happen to other people, but one does not have to lose everything before deciding to make a change. And I think that's important to realize. Now, sometimes in order for people to want to make a change, they have to experience enough pain. I know I did, and some people's pain tolerance is different than others. And sometimes that does mean losing everything. But it does not have to get to that point.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. The emotional mental pain tolerance, because like you said, there's some people who they can say something stupid to someone at a bar after drinking too much and be like, "Well, I'm done. I'm done." Then there's other people who need to wreck 16 cars, have 7 DWIs, lose their family, hurt someone in a car accident, just what like crazy stuff. But that's it takes what it takes. I've heard that term a lot too. It takes what it takes, and I really believe that because my journey with mental health, it's been a cool journey to watch. I would say just because like just kind of watching my past unfold, because you think that it has to look a certain way, and then you learn about yourself whenever you are looking back, and you're like, huh, can I learn from this, or is this something I can't control? If I can learn from it and move on, maybe I'm in a better place than I used to be. But I think it's also tricky sometimes because sometimes our mind is our worst enemy, and it'll say, "Oh, you're in a great place. Look what you're doing. You got the great job. You got the girl, like you said earlier. You're doing great." But you're not, you still have a hole in your heart that needs to be solved or filled with something better, like God, or community or just something to start.
Yeah, that's very true. I think for me, I did not know what it was going to look like. I did not have a great relationship with a higher power. I didn't understand how God was going to help me. I thought that I was the only person that could help myself, and believe me, I tried many times to do it on my own and continued to fail. And right, I faced some consequences. Like what really got me to thinking, okay, like I really need to make a change, was at 24 years old. I had liver damage from the amount that I was drinking, and I found myself Googling and playing doctor on the internet, like trying to figure out how much can you drink by a certain age before liver damage becomes permanent, knowing very well that it varies from person to person and there is not going to be that exact answer or that certain number of drinks that you can have until liver damage becomes permanent. But I could not believe that, I was playing the victim. How is this happening to me and why? And, there are people that drink every day and are healthy until they're 90. But here I am at 24 with liver damage, and I don't know what to do because I can't imagine life without drinking. And bear in mind, like that was 24 years old. I didn't get sober until I was 26. So I I had breaks in there and I continued to try, but I could not stay away from alcohol, even with this knowledge that I was hurting myself internally as well as, mentally and spiritually.
Yeah, I think we always find the answers that we're looking for if we look deep enough. We're always going to find a Reddit article or something that agrees with our thought process and justifies it. And it could be anything really, but I found myself doing that same thing in different ways. And it is you made a good point. That's actually almost kind of humorous. Like you see the 95-year-old man who actually no, I think there was a story of this guy who was like 110 or something or 105, something very old, and he goes. Someone asked him, "What's the secret to longevity?" And he goes, "A cigar and a bourbon every single day." And he meant it. Like he drank bourbon and smoked cigars every single day, and called that the secret to longevity. And then someone like you, it probably we're doing the same things around his age, maybe. And you're 24, and you're told that you have liver damage, which is absurd.
Yeah, I thought it had to be something else. But the numbers don't lie and the blood labs don't lie, and
Yeah.
so that's the hand I was dealt, and it was either make a change or that path is not pretty, and alcoholic
Yeah.
death is a pretty ugly thing.
Yeah. So I want to hear now about that point where you said, "All right, I'm willing to put in the work," because I kind of know what was leading up to that, but I guess I'm more interested in also the mindset, what that mindset looks like to finally say, you know what, I'm going to join a program, a 12-step program, and put in all the work because that's not an easy task, and then you have to do a lot of things that you don't want to do that are very uncomfortable. So a lot of people that it's not that bad, they're like, yeah, why would I do all this? Because I maybe I can help myself. But you said you tried that over and over and over. So what was that mindset whenever you finally were like, all right, I'll just listen to the people who have been doing this for a while and I will bring God into my life for the first time?
Well, that's exactly what it was. So one might think that the proper mindset is like, okay, I'm finally committed. I'm going to do this. This time it's going to be different. I know exactly what I need to do. And the thing is, that had been my mindset the previous 7 times I'd been to treatment. And getting out, my mindset was, I've got this. I know what to do. And so the ironic part of the successful mindset that I had when I was finally able to get sober was, I don't got this. I don't know what to do. And I am finally going to surrender and listen to other people who have obviously had far, far more success than I have had when it comes to recovery. And so it was a mindset of willingness, willingness to do things that I didn't understand, that I might not have wanted to do, but I was told that if I did them, that my life would change. And finally, I was, it was, it was it was letting go of the arrogance that I had and this thinking that I'm smarter and I know the answers and this program might work for these people and letting God into your life might work for these people, but it's not going to work for me. So the mindset also consisted of a lot of humility and realizing that I am not that special. Like this has
It's always
worked.
humbling.
Yes, and it's like this has worked for many people, and there's no reason that it can't work for me either. So, I did go to one final treatment center, and it was a long-term place, and there was surrender involved as well into saying, yes, I will go here, and I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm willing because this short-term 30-day situation has not been working for me. And
What was the
so
name of that for maybe a listener who is at that point where they're like, I have tried everything else?
yeah, it's called Burning Tree Ranch.
Okay.
Yep,
And that's in
in
DFW?
yeah, right outside. It's in Kaufman, Texas.
Okay. Awesome.
So that's the place where and I will also say I looked for the right treatment center for years because I thought and I really just wanted to find the place that was going to fix me. You know, I went to a place close to the beach because I thought Poseidon might hop out of the waves and just snap the alcoholism out of me. I went to treatment in the mountains. I went to a small town in Alabama where there was nothing going on for miles and miles. Like, I thought it was going to be the place, and it's not the place. It doesn't matter where I go because there I am, and like it's still me with the same issues. So this place was great, but I also want to make sure I say that people can get sober anywhere, doing anything, and doesn't even have to be with a treatment center. Like I know I was in a very blessed position to be able to go to treatment. There are plenty of people who either financially can't get there or have too much else going on or just don't have the resources, and so I know that I was very lucky to have this opportunity, and I don't deny that. So finally I took advantage of that and just entered with the mindset of I'm going to do whatever is asked of me because I'm tired of living this way. And so that surrender date for me was April 17th of 2022, and I've been sober ever since, and I'm super grateful for that. And the mindset doesn't always continue. Sometimes the further you get away from the pains and just turmoil and misery of alcoholism, it's easy to forget what it was like. And so, like we touched on way earlier, it's really important to not let this life I have today get in the way of the program and the things that have made it possible for me.
Yeah, it's kind of like don't stop doing what got you where you are now. And it sounds very simple, and maybe in concept it's simple, but it's not easy. I feel like that's a very hard thing to stick with, because you're right. You're almost 4 years removed from all of that horrible pain. And congrats to you on sticking with it, and for being almost 4 years sober after trying almost a dozen times to do it. That's huge. And I guess I hear a lot, like, people, they start something, or they think they're ready or whatever, but maybe they are, whenever at the time, but they get into something and they feel like they're fixed, like you said earlier, and then they stop. And whenever you stop, then it's not always just. I would say it's probably not an immediate, like, turmoil. A lot of times it can be, but what's your advice to that person who's maybe 2 years sober, 3 years sober, and they're like, I have a sweet job at SMU. I'm going to get my master's on scholarship. I've got a fiance. I've actually got money now. Like, what's your advice to that person who gets to that point and says, I think I'm good?
Man, I would just caution them. I'm not in a position, nor do I ever want to speak from a mountaintop or a spiritual mountaintop to people. But my experience is that when I have seen people go out and relapse, it's because they have stopped doing what has gotten them to that point. So it would just be a word of caution and concern, and just letting them know that the community is still always going to be there for them. And maybe you do take a break, and after 2 months, if you're not feeling so great, you know where to find us, and you have the contacts. But the thing for me is I'm not going to tell people what to do, what's right or wrong. Some things work for other people, and I just know what's worked for me, and I know from my experience of watching way too many friends pass away, because of that, like, hey, life is good. Why change anything? Like, it for me, I know it's not worth it to even have the slight risk of going back, because what it means to keep the life I have today and to continue the recovery journey, it's not a huge commitment. It's a few things every week. It's a couple of hours. But ultimately, if that's what I need to do and get to do in order to stay free from addiction, then I'm more than willing to do it. So I would advise them to just take a deep look and see, okay, do you really think that you are an addict or alcoholic? And if you do, like, I'd implore you to really see if that's the right thing to do, just leaving this all behind.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great advice, and I think that's a great way to start to close this episode out. Before we do, though, I just want to ask you, what advice do you have for that person who maybe one foot in, one foot out, in either alcoholism, any type of addiction, any type of just mental health struggles, that may want to reach out, and maybe it has a longing to get well, but maybe doesn't have the courage, or maybe is kind of in that embarrassment, shy phase, and it doesn't want to expose themselves yet?
Yeah, it's it's a tough place to be in. It really is, and the fear of what people are going to think about me was overwhelming, and I didn't want to shatter this image that I thought people had of me. You know, I would just say, and this might come off as harsh, but, like, you are not that special to where it is going to, like, blow people away if you come out and say, like, hey, I have a problem. Most people are probably going to be grateful, and the people close to you probably know anyway. I thought I was keeping up this facade, but my friends and my family knew that there was a problem. And it was at the point where I wasn't going to listen to them. They were waiting for me to say, okay, I have a problem. I'm ready. Because I didn't want to be told what to do. I didn't want to be told I had a problem. So when I finally got to the point where I was willing to come out and say that, people were like, yeah, I know. I'm glad that you can see it too now. So, if you are in a place where you're not really sure what to do, just know that there is a community out here that is waiting with open arms, is super supportive and loving, and there are numbers to call if you want to stay anonymous and just find out, if you want to go to a meeting of some sort, they are all over. There are apps that tell you where meetings are in your area. You can look online, but I would just encourage you to, go check one out and go shake a few hands and meet people, and at least that way you'll feel less alone. You'll know that you aren't the only person out there that's struggling, and people want to help. That's been my experience, especially when I was brand new in the program. Like the new person is the most important person, and people will want to help. I know when I'm given the opportunity to help another person that's struggling, it helps me just as much as it helps them. And I will end with this because this was a huge thought that I continue to have, was that I am a burden and I don't want to push my problems onto other people. So I will tell you, you are not a burden. You're worth it. Your life is worth it. And there are plenty of resources out there, ranging, and they're free, like it's not a scam. You don't have to pay money, and people are waiting for you and would love to see you and would love to help you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think that's a perfect way to close, and I definitely agree that everyone is worth helping, and I think it does shock people when they get into settings like that. It shocks them when they find out how many people genuinely do want to help, because I think a lot of us, we get into our own selfish ways, so we think that everyone else is selfish too. We don't consciously think that, but that's where our mind goes. And like you said, man, just reaching out to someone, if you go somewhere to a meeting or whatever it may be and you don't like it, good news is you don't have to go back if you don't want to. So, but this has been great. Thank you, Joe. Joe Trenning, everyone. I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today.
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. I appreciate it.
This episode is sponsored by Tin Can Timepieces. Looking for a watch that's built for anything life throws at you? Let me introduce you to Tin Can Timepieces. This is more than just a watch, it's a commitment to quality and purpose. Tin Can Timepieces is proudly based out of Georgia and is owned and operated by an active duty U.S. Navy submariner. That's right, a company built on discipline and precision. Every watch they create is handcrafted and features reliable automatic movements, ensuring you get a premium, quality feel with every tick. Whether you need a rugged diver or a classic dress watch, Tin Can offers an assortment of styles for every mission. Tin Can Timepieces, hand built for purpose, built for the depths. Dive deeper and check out their collection today at tincantime.com.